All right, it is 12 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started, expecting quite a few more attendees to be jumping on board as we go through this, but we'll start off with a little housekeeping at first. First of all, I want to welcome you all. My name is Eric Danielson, Vice President of Programs at ICAN, and appreciate you taking the time to come on this ISCA lunch and learn about the FAFSA, you can say, over the noon hour here about what's been going on and just also be able to ask us some questions. Besides myself, my colleague John Holland is also on as well. He's going to be monitoring the chat box and bringing up some questions and also putting in a few links that we'll talk about here in just a bit within the chat box. And so for you to be able to interact and ask your questions, please do utilize the chat box today to ask those questions. Don't use the Q&A. We've got the chat box that should be open for you to be able to ask those questions right now that you have. So please ask us any questions as we're going along, and we'll pause at times too with the information we have to share. First of all, I just want to mention I don't really have a PowerPoint. There might be one time I share a screen, but haven't really had time to put together a PowerPoint necessarily because we at ICAN have been inundated with back-to-back appointments and FAFSAs, whether Zoom or in person, since we got back after Christmas break on January 3rd and helping students and families. And for many families that we've helped out with, it has been a better process. We've been able to complete the form quickly for them, bringing over the tax information if both the student and the parent or parents, if we need two of them, FSA IDs, have them ready and they've been verified. For many families, it has been working as a slick process. That being said, there has been some glitches for some families with the situations that they have. And then occasionally some students and families, there have been glitches that we've not been able to necessarily explain either. And that has been frustrating for those certain students and families that have been trying to complete the form. So I've got a few topics that I want to go over through with you as we're going along. Any questions that you have, I want to try to be able to answer those for you. But the first topic that I want to bring up right now, because we just got new information hot off the press this morning, was about submitting a FAFSA form for students who have parents that do not have Social Security numbers. Excuse me. Right now, what I'm going to have John put in the chat box is a link to some instructions on a workaround. First of all, an announcement about helping students with get a workaround here being available at this time if you need to beat a priority date. But by the first half of March, those families that have parents without Social Security numbers, the students and parents, should be able to submit a form sometime that first half of March. Now, what I wanted to mention about this, what we found out is this workaround that is taking place, we would only encourage families, and they're only encouraging at Federal Student Aid, only to use these workaround and tips to help submit a form if it's to meet critical non-federal aid. In other words, priority dates at certain colleges or universities that a student is looking at, if they want them to do that. Because the workaround that can be done right now, and I'll be honest, we have not done this workaround yet. We just got it today. And so we've not seen it in progress yet. What they're talking about, a 9-step workaround to help submit a student's FAFSA form with parents without Social Security numbers. It would be a workaround to submit the form, but it would not complete it. Later on, the family would have to go back in once they are able to use their FSA IDs. Those parents without Social Security numbers can use their FSA IDs to do the electronic form sometime the first half of March, and then they'll be able to make corrections and complete it after the form that initially was submitted is processed. So John has put in the announcement at first, but now there's also, it's a long link from Huffman House, but that is the link that actually shows what those steps are going to be. I mean, it includes, just to give you an idea, again, we just got these, so I would encourage you to download those, but It's the student getting into the form, inviting all required contributors. They sign their section after doing the school, but from their section complete form, they're going to be able to enter in some contributor information manually and provide that and be able to submit it. Again, at ICAN, we have not done this yet and seen it in action since we just got it. But this would be a way to help a student and family who needs to beat a scholarship or a college priority date. This would help them in getting this form done, and beating a priority date. But one more time, I want to reiterate, we would only want the students to go this route if they need to beat a college priority date. Excuse me. This morning, after talking with a couple of schools, Iowa State and the University of Northern Iowa, they did mention to us that they would go ahead and use the workaround for their students to try to get it in as quickly as they can, including trying to beat Iowa State's priority date now, which is February 29th, and getting it in. So at the University of Northern Iowa and Iowa State, I think they would want you to try this workaround and help any student within this situation. I can't say that we know it with every school that is out there, but I got to feel the most of the other Iowa colleges and universities probably would encourage families to wait on doing the FAFSA form until in March, when they can actually complete the form and get it done and utilize their FSA IDs. As we had mentioned, as we had put out with a statement, now it might have been 3 or 4 weeks ago when families were continuing to have this issue, we would have each student check with their individual colleges to give them the discretion on what they want to be done. But I do think this workaround will be in place for many colleges if they want you to do the workaround before you can complete it in March, that it would be that they would want them to do the electronic now instead of the paper version workaround instead. But other colleges might say, just go ahead and wait until March. Most of them probably go ahead and wait until March when you can complete it. But I think this is going to get us away from needing to complete any more paper forms in the future for these students. So again, this workaround, that is correct. This workaround is only for parents with no social security numbers, not anything else. That is correct. That's what the workaround would be. And again, it states on that PDF to only use these TIP if it's to meet critical deadlines, because they are going to have the form ready to be able to complete for families in these situations at some time the first half of March. Another thing I wanted to mention with this too, let me get to my notes here because again, it's just kind of hot off the press here, is by the end of February, there is supposed to be key improvements that are going to be made for the process for those without Social Security numbers too, making their FSA IDs faster and simpler. Now I'm reading from what they given to us. I hope that is going to be the case, but it does say by the end of February. So as a reminder, any contributor, student or parents, are still going to need to have a studentaid.gov account. Register for an FSA ID at studentaid.gov. And some families, parents without Social Security numbers, have been able to do that already, but still haven't been able to complete the electronic version. By mid-March, they should be able to, but any parents in that situation that have had issues in getting their FSA IDs, if they didn't have Social Security numbers, I would encourage them to try at the end of February or beginning of March to see how that process works for them. It's supposed to be a little bit easier, that if they can't use the TransUnion match, that a case number should start for them right away, and getting an email and being able to get that process going quicker. That's at least what we've been told. Now, there was a question on here, if we've already completed a paper FAFSA for a family without Social Security number, should we complete the workaround as well? I would say no, that is not something you would do. In fact, just to read from this form, that was a question on here, and I want to make sure I get their wording on there, is if you filed a paper form to meet an application deadline in January or February, you should not fill out a duplicate online form, as it will override the earlier paper application. So if they did it, if you did a paper form, but it wasn't to beat any kind of priority deadline or anything like that, then I guess, yes, you could do that because it's going to be processed sooner. But if you filed a paper form to meet an application deadline in January or February, do not fill out a duplicate online form, as it will override the earlier paper application date, the date that they received it. So that is from federal student aid and their guidance on that. And I'm just double checking here real quick. Let me check something. Okay. If some are having issues with the PDF link in there, um, maybe send an email to John Holland or me. I know someone was having an issue with that and asking for it, but when I clicked on the link, it did work on my computer, so I'm not sure what might be going on there. But that PDF of from the Huffman House is within the area. That is giving the instructions on what to do for the link. Or the workaround there. Any other questions? Double checking to make sure I didn't miss anything on this. I'm actually attending a high school tonight that I think I might have a few of these that might be there. Depending on what colleges that they go to, we might need to use the workaround. But we have not, nobody yet at ICAN, since we just got this morning, has tried to see how well the workaround is working. Okay. All right. If there are any other questions on that do come up in any situation, please let us know. I am hoping that this is good news then, that by the middle of March, that families where the parents do not have Social Security numbers will be able to complete a FAFSA form and get it done. And since we're not going to be having FAFSA processed until then, I think then that many families are not going to be hurt by what has happened, hopefully so far, be too far behind if they're able to start the process then, which does kind of sort of lead me into my next topic that I wanted to get into. And some of you may have known this already, but just in case, there have been no 24-25 FAFSA forms that have been processed yet. They were supposed to start at the end of January or February, but a few weeks ago, we got an announcement because federal student aid had made a mistake in the calculation when they initially put in not having part of that calculation or figuring in any type of inflation that they were supposed to within the calculation, that now the processing wasn't going to begin until the first half of March. So the processing for 24-25 FAFSAs will begin the first half of March. Now, how many at that time that they're going to process, we do not know. I have not heard any clarification on that. The chances are that they could be doing it within batches. So whether they start from when they first started receiving them, the beginning of January, and every day, every week, whatever it is, however many that they do, this could be a process that goes into ones that were even done in January and February. You might not be getting them processed until sometime in April. And when they do begin processing, whenever they start that, it's going to take a couple of weeks for colleges and universities to be able to get their software systems up and running, to be able to get those student records. They call them ICERs when they get sent to the colleges. And colleges haven't been given much guidance on that. They did some test batches last week or the beginning of this week with the ICERs. So they are trying to test it out. But it is going to take the colleges and universities a while to get everything, all the students there once they're processed. And so you might not see, students may not see at some colleges and universities their financial aid offers until April, maybe even the month of May. And we wish they could obviously get them sooner, but it's just the reality that they're dealing with right now. So there's a lot of students that are going to be waiting to try to get their financial aid offers from colleges and universities. And I know they're going to be working on them as quick as they can, but it could be April or May before they receive those. Again, first half of March is when they're going to begin processing, but we don't know how many they're going to process each day, each week as they go along. So for some students, At ones that were done in February, it could still possibly get into April before they're processed, and then eventually April or May when they get their financial aid offers. Again, any questions as we go along, please let us know within the chat. Another topic that I did want to bring up that we've seen occasionally, and I'm going to share my screen on this one, is when when we're filling out the student portion of the FAFSA form, and it comes to the part about entering in parent information, inviting a parent or parents onto to do the parent part of the student's FAFSA form. Now, on this slide, you see it's broken up. It would be all one slide if you were actually doing the form there at FAFSA.gov, or excuse me, at studentaid.gov. But one thing I want to mention with this slide, one point at first is, if you're helping a student filling out a FAFSA form that has two parents, but they filed a joint tax return in 2022, only invite the parent that has the FSA ID. If both of them have FSA IDs, but they did a joint tax return, still only invite one parent on that form on here instead of two. We've just seen a couple of complications come up when you've invited more than one parent when you only needed to have invited one because they did a joint return. And so just invite one if they filed joint taxes. If there are parents that did not file joint taxes in 22, but it's a two-parent contributor household, then obviously go ahead and fill in both invites and send it to those parents to complete. Another thing, though, that we wanted to mention with this slide was, when you're entering in the parent information for the invite, it needs to match up with the parent's first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number as it is that they registered with their FSA ID. So I know that there's been some of you that have seen when you've entered in and tried to send the invite, it'll kick you back up to the top with a message in the red stating, this parent may already have an FSA ID. Double check to make sure the information is correct. The majority of times, I can't say all the time that there haven't been some glitches, but the majority of times there's an issue with the first name or last name, date of birth, or maybe even social security number. It shouldn't be social security number because that should already be verified. And so hopefully it wouldn't be that unless they put in the wrong social security number within the invite itself. But we've had some examples where the parents' last names have changed. They still have their old last name under the FSA ID right now, but it has actually changed. What you would need to do to check on to see why you're getting that message is to actually, and a lot of times we'll stay on the same browser. We might be in Google, but then we'll go to Firefox, and we'll open up studentaid.gov, and we'll enter in the parent FSA ID and have them log in, and then go to their settings to see what they have for first name, last name, and date of birth within there. Yesterday, I had a parent trying to fill, they could not get it figured out. They came in, the parent FSA ID, when we logged in, they had misspelled their last name. Everything else matched up, so it said match. So we had to change that last name in the setting, and then once we went back to the invite with the correct name, it allowed us to move on from there. Another problem that we've also seen sometimes within these invites is after the first name or the last name, if you put a space, that has caused us from being able to move on as well. It's recognized that space before. So double check that at first too, to make sure there's no space there and see if you can move on. But if it continues to show that wording stating that like there's something wrong and won't allow you to move on, log in with the parent FSA ID, see what's in there and see if anything needs to be changed within the FSA ID itself or with what's on the username and password. Sort of a workaround that we've done before, you could say, is, for example, if a parent's name now was Griffin, but it was Brock, and Brock is still what they used on their FSA ID, we might go ahead and put Brock down on there to be able to move on what's matched with the FSA ID, complete the form, send them their invite, and even do the parent part. and then make the change later on the name. Because once you make a change to like a date of birth or a name within your FSA ID in the settings, it's going to take 1 to 3 days to verify again on that. And so to get a form done, sometimes we'll wait on making that change until after we can go on through the form and to be able to complete it. I'm gonna stop sharing just a second and just take a look at some of the questions here on there to see if anything that we have. There was a question on there that I want to make sure to address to everyone. Somebody asked, so to change something on my form that's been submitted, I need to wait until it's processed. That is correct. That is one thing that we do want to make sure to emphasize. Any corrections that need to be made on any form that's already been submitted is going to have to wait until it is processed. And they're again going to start that the first half of March, but there could be some forms that aren't processed until the end of March, maybe even beginning of April. We just are not sure on that. Whenever the student would get the message that their form has been processed, that's when corrections could be made. Whether changes, whatever changes that might be, could be adding on schools or some financial information maybe that you had put in wrong, but that is when the corrections would be able to be made when it is processed. And so kind of going back to those folks that if they do right now do the workaround to try to submit their form, but it's not totally completed, those families whose parents don't have Social Security numbers, they won't be able to go in and make any corrections or anything later until their FAFSA is processed as well on the form. Just checking to see if there was anything else. Okay. There was a question about some universities are telling students to accept their acceptance now, including a non-refundable deposit. Obviously, they don't have financial aid packages yet, so you do not know their cost or comparative between potential schools in order to make decisions. These families are considered low income and cost is priority. What do you advise in this situation? I guess I would always, be in contact with the colleges, but I would have the students not make any decision until they felt comfortable with what they could afford and do. And if that means waiting on sending any kind of acceptance in, I think that that's what you would need to do if it's non-refundable. I would again try to have them work with the colleges and let them know what their situation is, because that can vary from school to school. There has been talk with, I know on a national level, some colleges changing over their financial aid, or excuse me, their decision day from May 1 to later. And that certainly could be a possibility for some schools here in the state of Iowa. Quite honestly, we have a lot of colleges and universities here in Iowa where decision day on May 1st isn't something that is set in stone. They'll still accept and take students even after then. So I think it's just good to be in communication with them right now. But the colleges and universities know that they've got students in these type of situations, and I don't believe they're going to want any student making any decisions or doing anything that they're not feeling comfortable about and being able to make acceptance decisions at that time. All right. Just putting out another call, making to see if there's any other questions that you have as of right now. I just wanted to mention a couple of other topics too. Get to my notes here. If families are still having some FSAID issues, there is an account recovery page. We would still have them call 1-800-4FED-AID in some situations. But I will tell you that there still have been some glitches that we do see across for some families that can't explain it. And that's about the only place they can go to try to get those resolved. Hopefully, and I know that that's not always easy process for them to be able to make a call and get through. They've been put on hold a lot. One of the things in the announcements we did hear is there are supposed to be more agents by the end of February hired to be able to help within certain situations. Why they didn't know about that and realize that was probably going to happen here in the beginning of January and have them ready anyway, that I cannot answer and do not know. But They have mentioned that they're going to be hiring more, so hopefully getting more help that families can use if they're in a situation where they have to call 1-800-4FED-AID. And if you still have any families that are needing help in filling out the FAFSA form, obviously at ICAN, we're still doing appointments and things that can be done like that. But I did want to promote a webinar that we're going to be doing next Wednesday, February 28th at 5:30. It's our actually third FAFSA step-by-step program. John just put the link into that for people to be able to register there. During that step-by-step program, I'm going to have screenshots of the FAFSA and going through it to see what it looks like and filling out the form. And then the chat box, there are going to be members of IASPA, the Iowa Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators from around the state of Iowa, answering people's questions specifically. So that is a great event that we want to promote again. It's the third one we're doing. I know the first one we had 219 people registered back in December when we couldn't even fill it out yet. We were still able to go line by line through them. And then we had over 150 for the one that we did in January, middle of January as well. So please feel free to let your families know if they would like to attend that event and see it step by step, get questions answered in the chat box. We'd love to have them register there for that event. Another question I just want to see. Only item we missed was the parent signature box. Student signed and submitted, and the parent can't log back in to sign. All the other information was submitted. Wait until it's processed. Yes, I believe that's the other thing that we would need to wait until that part is processed too, if there is a signature missing. I will tell you that there was one time I filled out a FAFSA form for a family, and we did the parent and the student part and then the parent part where you have to sign and submit. And then later on, it said a signature was missing, which did not make any sense to us. To me, it kind of shows where there's still maybe some, glitches that are happening that don't make a lot of sense, and we'll see. But if there is something that's going to be missing, a signature missing or anything else, any type of correction, after it's been submitted, you're going to need to wait until it's processed first before making any of those corrections. Another question come in. So Iowa State, it needs to be completed by February 29th. Yes, this week, actually, Iowa State moved their priority date, even for first-year students, to February 29th as well. Their returning students, it's always been February 29th for them getting in the form, but Iowa State just moved it from the 22nd now to the 29th for first-year students, giving them another week to be able to complete the form. And for those students that might still be looking at Iowa and UNI, I would just encourage, they had February 15th priority dates, but I would just encourage students to get them in as soon as possible right now. And if you had any glitches, and this is with any college and university, if you have a family that has any glitches at all for whatever reason, contact those colleges and tell them to contact the colleges and let them know. Those colleges know that this year's process it's been a mess for some families, and it's not always the family's fault why that is taking place. And so if they can document some things down that you were trying to get it in before a priority date, then you just need to let them know that, and they might be able to help out with that so that once your glitch is done and submitted, they know you were trying to get it in before then. So can't promise on any college universities what they can do. I just think students and families should be in contact with them, whatever situation that they're having trouble getting it in. One example I will give is in the middle of January, I was filling out a FAFSA form student for an independent student that goes to Iowa State. Independent student. He was born before January 1 of 2001, so automatically independent, but an undergraduate student. When we got towards the end filling out his form, it was going very quickly. We had everything done, so it was trying to get to the signature page. But after we put in the college, every time we were trying to move on to get to the sign part and move on after after looking over the review section, it would kick us back to the slide that asked, would contacting your parents be an issue or cause you or pose you at risk? A slide that should never come up with an independent student anyway. And it didn't initially, but it went back to that slide. Well, we put no down and went back through the form again, already answered, and got to the last part again, trying to get to the signature page, and it kept looping us and taking us back to there. He contacted federal student aid, and they said it's a glitch. Not that it happens to every independent student like that. Who knows why it was happening to him? I joke around a little bit, half jokingly, saying it could have because his name ends in ON and he was born in October, and everybody in that situation is having that glitch. It's just something really funny like that that is, as far as I know right now, still causing him an issue. But he contacted Iowa State, let them know what it was. They documented it down, and they knew that he was trying to get it in before February 29th. So I know that they've marked him down as having his priority date, that he's met or will have met the priority date. Whenever they get that glitch over with and he submits in the form, he's still going to be in good shape. So always keeping in contact with them. That's just one example that some colleges might be able to do if students are having issues like that one that was beyond his control. Right. One last thing that I wanted to mention real quickly about that I know we've got questions on some other ones, was if we've had any updates on like state aid, Iowa tuition grant, or last dollar scholarship. Did some checking, and as of right now, there's actually no updates that we can give, just what's being given this year. Really, to know what some of the EFC, excuse me, Student Aid Index this year, SAI, Student Aid Index cutoffs are going to be, and the parameters of the award. They really need to start seeing some FAFSAs being processed and information coming in on how that's going to affect the budget. So I'm assuming that we're not going to know too much about that until April or May, even on what some of those parameters are going to be on things like the Iowa tuition grant and last dollar scholarship, uh, until maybe end of April, getting into May as well. So we don't have any parameters, don't know any more than what the parameters are for this year for the 23-24 students in college right now. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions within there. Please, if you've got any last minute questions, and I know many of you as school counselors don't have a lot of time to be able to do here over the lunch hour, so we wanted to try to make it as quick a meeting as possible. But any other last minute comments or questions that you have, please put them in the chat. John, just wondering, is there anything else that you think I should add, or any questions that had come up that you think I should address again?
No, no, I can't think of anything right now, at least.
All right. I will just reiterate one more time with the information that we sent out. And I know we're going to try to put out a statement at some time about it. But what we talked about in the very beginning, for those students who do not, with the parents that do not have social security numbers and trying to complete their FAFSA form, there is now a workaround in that PDF, but only do that workaround if it's to meet critical deadlines that they need to get in, a priority date of a college or that. If a college or university or scholarship or whatever um, can wait until later, that process for them to be able to totally complete the form is supposed to begin the first half of March as well. And I've got to think, I'm assuming right now that the majority of colleges and universities are going to want students to wait until then to be able to totally complete the form. But there could be some that want them to get it in still ASAP. And if that's the case, and then I'm hoping this workaround that we've been sent will work for them. I think John had one more thing that he wanted to mention as well.
So I was just going to add, it's kind of like you and I were talking about before the webinar, Eric, that fortunately, most of the applications that we're submitting, and we're probably doing 8 to 10 a day per person at ICAN, most of the applications are going through fine, and there's fewer questions about the financial situation of the family. So when it goes smoothly, it goes smoothly. But like we talked about, if you're caught in one of those glitches, it's really unfortunate for the families that they have to wait so long to try to get it resolved.
Thank you, John. That's a good point. We do want to be positive. Next year, it's going to start again on October 1st. That's another reminder, last reminder as well, that it's supposed to begin on October 1st again. And hopefully a lot of these glitches will be out of the way, and next year will go a lot smoother for everyone in doing the form. There's been a few tweaks to the calculation, like the business farm and the number of students in college not being taken into account, that I wish they wouldn't have done and might redo. But the actual completion of the form, really still for the majority of families, when they've got everything, has been going very smoothly, as John mentioned. And we hope that means next year that almost everyone, it will be a smooth process as well. And there was another question on here. Have colleges and universities indicated if they'll push back their deadline to accept admission? Honestly, I still think that that's something that colleges and universities are still looking at right now, because it was just a couple of weeks ago, and they're still kind of waiting to see if they would get all of the FAFSAs processed here in March, they might still be able to kick out financial aid offers quickly and get them to students. It's sounding more and more like it's not going to be all of them that they're going to receive in March and be processed, what's been done up to this time. But I think some of them might be even waiting till then, when FAFSAs are started, to see if they'll push back on some of their deadlines to accept admission. Really, a lot of schools don't necessarily, even here in Iowa, a lot of community colleges and even many private schools, I think it's safe to say that they're going to still take students accepting their admission even after the typical May 1 decision day that is there. I would encourage each student, though, to check with their individual colleges that they're looking at in case they might have missed something where their admission deadline was pushed back. I know nationally there's been a few schools already that have been moving them back, and so it certainly could be something come down the road, but none that we've seen, that I have seen at least as of yet, from any Iowa colleges promoting their pushback of any admission deadline. A lot of things that are still being in review for this whole thing and seeing what takes place. That's for sure. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for jumping on and attending this. I hope that it's been something you've been able to pick up from it. As always, if you ever have any questions, please reach out to your ICAN representatives. We will certainly try to answer those questions for you or guide you in the right direction on where to get them answered. This year, it seems like more than any other year that we've not been able to answer as many questions. You know, I've joked around with others and said, I think in the past, 9 out of every 10 questions we could probably answer for you. This year, it wouldn't be 9 out of 10 probably, with some of the glitches that are going on. But we're trying to keep on top of it and learning as we go, and helping students and families, and getting announcements like we've seen today out to you as school counselors, so you can get them to your students and families as well. So we'll continue to try to do that as well as we can, but please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us at ICAN if you have questions. And again, we're going to try to work through this the best we can with the students and families and you as well this year. And hopefully next year, it's going to be a lot better than what we've seen this year, with some of the glitches and the delays in starting the form and getting it processed as well. So without seeing any other questions, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Have a great rest of the week, and get a hold of us if any questions come up. Thank you very much.